Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined this week by a very special guest, my homeboy, Josiah McDonald. How you doing, Josiah?
I am doing all right, Mike. How are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great, doing great. I'm really excited to have you. You know, I when JD hit me up today and said that he could not make it, he is on the road. He is on assignment. I think he's coaching a wrestling tournament out of town, and he's stuck in a hotel room right now, probably with some other dudes, so he wasn't able to join the pod tonight. I was like, you know what I need? You know, Impact, their parent, it's Impact 20, right? It's the 20th anniversary. Their parent company is Canadian company. Scott Demore, executive vice president, Canadian, the world heavyweight champion, Canadian, the number one contender to the world heavyweight championship, Canadian. I need to get me a Canadian. You're the first name that came up, man. How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. It worked out very well because I Josh Nason asked me to recap Impact for this week, filling in for someone, so I went for it,
Yeah.
and then I messaged you and JD about does it air live on the YouTube, which is basically semi-live. So
Right.
because if it did, I would be able to recap it. If it didn't, otherwise I probably wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And thankfully it did. So now I'm here. So
Yeah, man. Well, shout out to Josh Nason. I'm glad that you brought him up. He's a cool dude, man. He's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, or how I got kind of not. He's not a reason why I got connected to Fight Game, but he's like loosely like, and I told him this recently, but like he's kind of the one of the reasons why I got my gig, because he went onto the Fight Game Media Facebook page and said that he was looking for some recappers, and to send him an email if any of us were interested. I was not yet writing at that point. I was just thinking about getting into the writing game and stuff like that. I had been kind of being creatively unfulfilled since I had quit my old podcast back in 2017. So I shot him an email, and I gave him a writing sample of some stuff that I had done before, but it was never really a recap deal. And he was very nice. And he goes, I'm looking for someone with a little bit of experience doing recapping. So why don't you go get some of that experience, and then come back, and we'll bring you on. And I didn't know exactly how to do that or where to do that. I didn't know who to talk to, so I just created my own website. I was like,
that's
well, I don't.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I don't know where to do this. So I created my own website, my own brand. It was called the Combat Republic. I was like I was trying to do like a military themed, but that didn't really last long. So I wanted to be based around combat sports, and I recapped exactly one event, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. I like to just tell jokes and give my opinions, and so I quit doing that. But I ended up getting enough readers and stuff like that. My stuff got a little bit of popularity with the Impact fans and stuff like that. So Garrett caught wind of that, and then here I am, man, doing a podcast.
I That's actually how I first got to know you. It was
Yeah.
as Combat Republic. I didn't even know your name was Mike Gilbert at first. I was like, oh yeah, I'm talking to this Combat Republic guy on Twitter.
Yeah, it was so funny. When Garrett and I started talking about me coming on, I was like, dude, the only reason I started the website was to get a gig somewhere else. But I kind of like being my own boss. I kind of like being in charge of my own stuff and writing whenever I feel like it. But like the whole goal was to get on a page like Fight Game, or and to get on the Observer. I always wanted to do some writing or podcasting for the Observer. Wink, Josh, if you're listening, Josh. Um, but that was the whole goal. And he was like, "Well, dude, you're doing great. Let's come on, and let's talk some Impact Wrestling on Fight Game Media."
Yeah, so that is kind of funny because Josh Nason's why I write at the Observer as well.
Yeah.
They put a call out a few years ago for New Japan recappers, and I watched New Japan pretty closely, and so I tried. I didn't get it, but then they put me on a short list, and then Josh contacted me and said, "How about Lucha Underground?" Which I had to jump through hoops to be able to watch, but I got there because we didn't have it in Canada. But I found a way with. Anyways, I ended up paying for Sling through with a VPN to watch it. So
Oh wow.
but I did it, and then that transitioned to when Lucha Underground added. I just kind of filled in for people here and there,
Yeah.
and then I ended up then I NWA was starting up, with NWA Power, and I just emailed Josh and said, "How about I do that? So I have a weekly gig with you guys." And that's what I've been doing ever since. So,
Awesome.
and I've been writing for Daily DDT a little bit after the initial email to Josh as well for everything, like show recaps, opinions, pieces, that kind of stuff. But
that's cool, man. Daily DDT is a big site, man. They got a lot of good writers. I know Sam Shipman's there, and a buddy of mine. He's here in Oahu, named Bruce. He's a writer over there.
Oh, so. Bruce Lee. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Bruce. That is his actual name. Bruce Hazelwood.
Cool.
Yeah, he does stuff with PW Torch as well. He's a good friend. I'm good friends with Bruce.
Yeah, he reached out to me recently because I just moved to Hawaii, and I was like, dude, I'm on Hawaii, and we should link up. I think me and him are gonna link up sometime soon, so that's gonna be pretty cool.
He mentioned that, and me and Sam both said Mike's a great guy, so you guys should hang out. So
yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Well, since you've done your recapping before of Lucha Underground and you've recapped NWA Power, I would say Impact Wrestling has some influences from the old Lucha Underground show with some of the stuff that they do, and then of course they were affiliated with NWA for the longest time. One of their stars right now is the current NWA champion, and we'll talk about him later. There's some breaking news on Matt Cardona. So I take it that you're not a regular Impact viewer. I know you have watched some of their stuff recently. How often are you watching Impact these days?
I tend to check out their big pay-per-views if the main events catch my eye. Mm-hmm. I have no problem spending money on an Impact pay-per-view because I know I'll enjoy it more often than not. It's the same thing when it came to Ring of Honor. I didn't watch the weekly TV, but I watched all the pay-per-views for Ring of Honor and any special shows they did and stuff like that. I would watch because I knew I was going to enjoy it. I tend to watch their pay-per-views. I'm not sure the last time I watched Impact. It was before. I don't know if Moose was champion or not, but it would have been right around that time. Just a few months ago, not that long, but but I as far as it goes, I'm not familiar necessarily with the storylines they're telling. So it's kind of interesting to be able to come in and watch it on a clean slate to see if I can understand the stories they're telling.
Yeah.
And I had no trouble with this, and I know all the wrestlers for the most part.
Right. Cool, because all the wrestlers you see them all over the place, right? Because Impact, they don't really lock down their people. The Impact talent can wrestle everywhere, so
and they share a lot with the NWA as well. And I mean they share with even AEW to a certain extent. So I was a big TNA Impact, TNA wrestling watcher way back in the Asylum days and into the first days of Impact, which is actually relevant for the intro of the show because I saw you tweet about it.
Yeah.
But, the intro brought memories back to me of 2005. So
yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, because I'm a lot like you. I'm a old TNA Asylum viewer, Nashville Fairgrounds days, and then I followed them all through. And I think and I don't want to bore my audience. I've told the story several times, but I watched pretty much off and on up until about 2013, 14, and then I took a few years off, and then I came back about 2018, and that's kind of when I've been watching pretty regular since 2018. But
pretty similar to me, although I think I stopped when Hogan. It was before Hogan and Sting at Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or whatever it was.
Okay, in 2011,
2010, 2011. Okay, it was 2011. Yeah. So I stopped watching shortly before that. And then I would watch the occasional pay-per-view or a TV episode here and there. But I pretty much wasn't watching wrestling at that point anyways. I was just UFC only. And then Bryan Danielson brought me back to the WWE in 2014.
Oh, nice.
And it was like, Bryan Danielson is the top guy in WWE? What is going on? My friend invited me over to watch the Royal Rumble that year. And I saw how over Danielson was and how the fans were chanting his name the entire night, and then they didn't put him in the Rumble. And I was like, well, I need to see what happens here. So it's funny that WWE screwing something up is what got me back into wrestling.
That's funny.
But then I
So
got into New Japan after that, and then I've been around ever since. So
right. So we'll go back to the intro. So I am actually, this is gonna be kind of funny because I have been reading the Observer every week on this show, and I use the recappers as the source material. You know, I think they had Antonio Garza for a long time, and they just brought in somebody recently, and then now you're doing it this week. So I'm gonna be reading your words back to you because on some of this stuff. So so they Impact opened up with a recap of the Violent by Design facing Josh Alexander and the Briscoe brothers last week, ending with Eric Young getting the big victory over Mark Briscoe, gaining some momentum as he heads into Slammiversary, and then we go right in to that TNA 2005. TNA, the new face of professional wrestling, I thought was just absolutely tremendous. And then they cut into the vignette or the music video with the old song that they had for TNA for a long time, and but they mixed in the current stars. Man, what'd you think of that?
19-year-old Josiah had a dose of nostalgia there. It
Yeah.
brought me back to sitting in my university dorm in 2005, trying to because it was on Fox Sports Net, Fox Sports Net, I believe it was.
So they were on. So my
It was
brain is a
before
little
Spike.
fried. So they were on Fox Sports Net in 04, and then in fall of 05 they moved to Spike.
That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would have been involved because we didn't get that in Canada. The only way for me to watch the Impact pay-per-views was to find downloads for them on the internet in 2004. So
Yeah.
that's how I watched Impact back then, sitting in my dorm room, just moving away from home,
Yeah.
at
So
18,
I
19 years old.
Yeah, I was in my dorm room, but I was in the dorm room in Japan at Yokota Air Base in Japan. I was a baby airman there, and we had they had this channel there called Star Asia. It was like an English sports channel, and they had it on that channel. But then I also had they had cable there on the base, and then we would get Spike TV. The only problem was is that you would get everything a week later. So if it aired on like
Right.
Thursday of last week, the following Thursday at the same exact time that you would normally see it would be the show from the previous week. And so they just kind of did it that way. Or you could, stay up in the middle of the night and watch it on Star Asia whenever they would show it on there. So I did actually keep up with it. I was just always a week late, unfortunately. So I watched TNA was probably my favorite promotion in 2005, 2006 timeframe. I think I started falling out of them around 2007, 8, and kind of went back to WWE. Actually, right around that time, 2008, I was full blown UFC. Like I watched wrestling more as like a side thing. I'd catch it every once in a while. But 2008, Brock Lesnar enters the UFC, and then I'm just full blown. That's all I'm watching at that point.
Yeah, I was into UFC in 2007. It was Randy Couture winning the title that brought me in.
Oh, nice.
Because I was like, the story of this old fella coming out of retirement to win the
Yeah,
title was just
yeah. I watched.
how is that not the best story?
Yeah,
And
I watched that live on an Armed Forces Network in Japan when he won that title against Tim Sylvia in Columbus, Ohio. So I remember that well.
yes, so it was actually the UFC after that was my first one,
Yeah.
but that one I watched all the highlights from. They showed the fight on the full fight basically on one of the Spike TV nights, and that's when I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. It's cool going down memory lane, and I really like that they're leaning into their TNA roots. I know that,
Yeah,
you have the TNA LOL stuff, and that stuff does exist, and there was a lot of bad stuff for TNA, but they have a lot of good stuff that they should be proud of. Then
yeah,
they should have a great
absolutely.
history that they should honor. And I like that they're doing that. And it's okay to make fun of some of the funny stuff that they did and the ridiculous stuff, and there was plenty. But I think that there was a ton of good that TNA brought to the wrestling business that we got to enjoy, and I'm really excited that they're actually celebrating that history and using that old intro. I think is a great way to do that.
Agreed. They they have so much talent that came through those doors, and it would be a shame not to celebrate that.
Hmm.
I mean, you had legends in the business. You've had some of the best young talent at the time, just showcased in a national level for the first time. and TNA had its failings because Vince Russo was a terrible booker,
Yeah.
but when Russo wasn't involved, there was a lot of good stuff there, especially. And even when he was involved, there was still a lot of good stuff,
Yeah.
especially with the X Division guys. But I mean, even then, Sting probably had one of the best runs of his career in TNA.
He was
And
great.
that's a remarkable guy who's had like 3 separate primes in his career.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, TNA should absolutely celebrate that history, embrace who you are. But always go look to the future, which they are doing very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, they did a great job on this episode of mixing the past with the present and the future, and they did that with the first match of the night. You had Mia Yim, who was formerly Jade in TNA, and then she went on to WWE and had a terrible run there, unfortunately. But she's back here at Impact now, and she's got this amazing entrance. I love it, and she's got a great theme song that I think another guy named Josiah made for her, Josiah Williams. I heard that he
Yes,
made that.
yep. I'm not sure if he did, but
Okay,
he's made several intros
yeah,
for guys. He's done several in AEW as well.
right,
Ever since WWE got rid of him, which is like,
yeah.
come on, man,
Yeah,
this guy's good.
yeah, he is, and well, she defeated an up and coming talent who has a lot of room to grow, but I think she's a very talented lady, and Savannah Evans. She's getting to be pretty good, and I could see a lot of the growth in her since she's made her debut just last year. But Yim hit the eat defeat to win. Also at the same time fighting off. Tasha Steelz on the outside. She got help from Jordan Grace, who looked awesome. She's a little powerhouse. We also had Deanna Prazo on commentary. What'd you think of this first match here?
Good. It was a good match. It was my first view of Yim in a while. I saw some of her WWE stuff, and to no fault of her own, that failed.
Right.
That had nothing to do with her talent. Savannah Evans, that was my first time seeing her. And like you noted, she's a little green, but she's Yim did a really good job covering for that and making her look good, which is what you got to do with young talent. And I think Evans is going to be really good. She's got to work on her timing a little bit, but outside of that, everything she did looked good, and she had some good powerhouse moves against Mia Yim. I like that match. Mia Yim, of course, is very good because
Yes.
she's just been around forever. And I know Tasha Steelz. It's very nice to see her getting success in Impact.
Yeah.
Because I saw her through NWA.
Yeah, she was on that show originally. She came over to Impact a couple years ago, and she's really become a star for this promotion. And I'm glad to see that she finally got the title.
Yes, yeah, she's got a lot of charisma. A lot of charisma.
Definitely. Speaking of charisma, we got the Sharkboy backstage. He was confronted by Eddie Edwards on his treatment of Impact Wrestling with Honor No More. Edwards threatened Sharkboy, saying he didn't know what he was talking about. Then, of all people, Chris Harris from America's Most Wanted, talk about TNA Roots, one of the great early stars of the TNA days. He stepped in and talked about saying that he was basically willing to fight Edwards. He said he hadn't been around in a while, but he'd throw down with him right now. And then Edwards backed off, and then he consoled Sharkboy at the end of the segment.
I didn't know what to think of Sharkboy confronting Eddie Edwards, and I'm like,
he was on the show a couple weeks ago. He had a match,
and I'm guessing he's probably an agent backstage or something like that.
No, they recently did a taping in Cincinnati, and that's where he's from. And so they brought in.
He came in for a few special things.
Okay. Yeah, he came in for a battle royal, and they taped a bunch of vignettes with him, and they're leaning into the TNA stuff. So he might even be at Slammiversary, which I think Sharkboy's funny. So bring him.
Sure, yeah, he's a great opening comedy act.
Yes.
If you want to get the fans to laugh and smile, he's a good way to heat up the crowd before major stuff. So
yeah.
I have no problem with Sharkboy. I just thought it was funny. Of all people to watch, and of course Chris Harris, I was not expecting.
Yeah, that threw me off guard.
Yeah, I don't know if he's working backstage there or not, or they just brought him in for this, but
no, they just brought him in, and we'll get into there's a big TNA or Impact Originals match versus Honor No More that got announced, and we'll talk about that after the recap part is over. But
yeah, I have ideas about who that's going to be. But
there are 2 slots available, And
Yep.
I know who are my two most wanted slots. I'll just leave it at that. But
That was a hint. That was
I
a hint, I think.
yeah, we'll call that foreshadowing, folks.
Yep.
Next, we go to the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, The Influence, doing their best impression of the Inspiration, who have retired recently. But they walked up to Rosemary, who just sitting in the dark by herself for some reason, and tried to confront her about how Havoc, her partner, lost to Masha Slamovich. She lost in brutal fashion to Masha, so that's why we're not seeing Havoc. In Impact, when you get beat really bad in a match,
You're dead.
you sell that for a little bit. I don't know if you're aware of this, Josiah, because we just saw it in another promotion where a guy got the crap kicked out of him on Sunday, and then with 10 power bombs, and then he's back doing work shoot promos on Wednesday, feeling no effects whatsoever. So here in Impact, even though we go into the dark realm sometimes, we do supernatural stuff, you still sell a beating in this promotion, which I think is
appreciate.
Good. But
I was hoping MJF would come up with a neck brace and like a crutch or something. Like, come on, you can still do that promo with a neck break and a neck brace at least.
Right. Sorry, I don't want to put any heat on AEW fans. My bad. But so Rosemary, her partner lost to Masha in brutal fashion. Rain offered makeup of all things to Rosemary, who's already wearing a ton of makeup, but then she gave it back and said she'd need it when she bites her face off. And then Crazy Steve and Black Taurus came and to her aid and chased the Influence away. Yeah, what do you think of this segment? Is this a segment that you're like, man, I wish I wasn't recapping Impact this week?
Yeah, it was short, so
yeah.
I just was like, whatever.
Yeah.
This was a very TNA segment in a bad way. But it was very much so WWE light.
Yes.
And that's not what I look for in my wrestling. When Impact does it, sometimes they do it well. This was not one of those times. But I don't get me wrong. I like all the talent involved.
Rosemary is one of my favorites.
She has such she's very committed to her character, which when you have her character, you need to be, and she plays that character very well. Like there's no one else that can play that character like her, and and so you can do the sports entertainment stuff. That's fine. But yeah, just it's not really for me. But don't get me wrong, there was nothing wrong with the segment. It was not the worst segment I've ever seen. I have seen far worse, and I would go just whatever. I do. Yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, well, whatever.
Yeah. So I've gotten so used to it. I'm just like, meh, it's Impact. And if it's gonna be stupid, keep it short. And they kept it short.
That's one of the things. That's why it didn't bother me. Yeah. It wasn't like this was a 10-minute segment. It was like maybe a minute.
Right.
And it was like that doesn't waste any time.
No, and that's good. And because I will tell you, a lot of people love those segments. That watch Impact, like a lot of the hardcore, like willing to accept anything Impact throws at them, they really love the Influence and Rosemary.
Great.
I'm like, do your thing, but for me, please just keep it short, and we're cool.
Yeah, and I go like, you know what? If you loved it, awesome. I am so happy for you.
More power to you.
Like if it's serving its fan base, it may not be for me, but if it serves their fan base well, what can I say? It worked. If it works for them, even if it doesn't work for me, if it works for them, that's fine.
I'll tell you what worked for me. Kenny King and Blake Christian. Boy, I loved this match, and I'll be honest, I have not been a fan of Kenny King's work since he returned to Impact. And even in this match, I felt like he gassed out at some point during the match. And I felt like Blake Christian was outworking the guy. But
easily.
They had an incredible match. Kenny King got the victory. But the match was so good, and all it really made me want was more Blake Christian, and it wanted me to. It was like I was watching this thing, and he's hitting all these incredible moves, and I'm like, Blake should be in the Ultimate X. Like I want that more now, but Kenny King still won, and I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? Why can't we just have a Blake Christian?
I felt like this was time to call an audible because Blake Christian was outstanding in this match.
Yeah.
That was my first time seeing him wrestle. I've known about him forever, but I've never actually seen him wrestle before.
Oh, wow.
And I knew he was good. I knew he was good. I laughed when I first saw him because he looks like he's a teenager trying to grow wisps of hair on his face, but he's a really talented young wrestler, and
He's a modern day Amazing Red.
yeah, in
He's
many
got the red
ways.
hair. He's got all the cool moves, and people love him. He's very, got kind of a quiet demeanor and persona.
And
Great baby face, and
yeah,
I'm just blown away by the guy.
I was watching the match and I was like, this guy's so easy to get behind.
Mhm.
Like he sells so well. He was selling so great for everything King did. Blake Christian was the star of this match, and don't
By
get me
far.
wrong, Kenny King was fine. It's
Mhm.
like I said in my recap, Kenny is good, or King is good, and Christian is a fantastic wrestler. Blake Christian,
Yeah.
man, he played this really well over everything that he did, and they really highlighted Blake Christian, but it's like we got to pull the trigger at some point to make this guy a star, and
Yeah.
that may have been the start of it. I would want this guy in Ultimate X.
Yeah, I think the problem is Blake Christian's not signed here, and Kenny King is. Blake
Fair enough.
Christian
Fair enough.
is probably and smartly keeping his options open because that Tony Khan is going to be handing out those Ring of Honor contracts, the KHANTRACTS contracts for that Ring of Honor startup. So. And he was on
Yeah.
the Ring of Honor pay-per-view in April. So
Oh wait, I did see him wrestle there.
yeah, but it was a short match.
Yeah, it was in the pre-show, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
he didn't do much there, but I think you get one whiff for this guy, and I'm like, he's everything that you would want in the X division. I'm a full believer that Impact should make getting him under contract a priority before Tony Khan does, because Khan's going to get him.
Yep, absolutely. You would be insane not to try to sign this guy. He's too good.
Absolutely. Here, we'll go to the end here. So what I do sometimes, just to give you a brief rundown, I will, if the match is worth it, I will actually do a little bit of play-by-play, using the source material from the Observer, which you have written. So please don't mind me while I just read your words back to you. But Christian started to come back. That saw him do a low 1-9 and then a half suplex for a 2 count. Christian had a standing frog splash for a 2 count. And then King hit a blockbuster for another 2 count. Lots of 2 counts here. King hit a spine buster for a 2 count. Christian rolled up the King with a cradle, but kicked up and kicked King in the head, which was awesome. It was a great move. Christian hit a kick that left King draped on the top rope facing the outside. So he did a frog splash off the corner onto King's back and then crashed onto the floor.
That was brutal.
Oh my God, it was brutal. Yeah. And then King grabbed the ropes on the pinfall, barely escaping. Christian missed a 450 splash, which was brutal again, but rolled up King with several pinfall attempts. Christian went for the 450 splash again, but King got the knees up and hit a dragon suplex before hitting the royal flush for the pin and the victory. Excellent match. Everybody should go out of the way to watch this match.
Yeah, it was really good. If I had to give it a star rating, I'm not going to play Big Dave, but if I had to give it a star rating, I'd give it 4.25.
Easy.
It was a really good match.
Easy 4.25. Next, we got a video that aired for the next competitor in Ultimate X. It's Jack Evans, and I thought the cool thing, he's a former AEW talent. I thought was really cool is that they actually used AEW footage in the introduction. So it shows that the Impact AEW relationship continue. Like it went away for a little bit, but it seems like they're back working together again. They just had Peraza and Morrissey on Dynamite, and then you got Kazarian that's been on Impact lately, and now you got Jack Evans, who I don't know if he's signed here in Impact, and we'll get more into Jack Evans talk later, but I just thought that was cool that they used the AEW footage to intro Jack Evans.
And nice that Evans is a former AEW talent, and AEW was more than happy to give them the footage.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because he's not under AEW contract anymore.
Right.
I thought that was great. And they then, if they wanted to too, they can go back to Jack Evans' brief stint in Team Canada. Yes, he was in Team Canada, I believe, at one point.
Oh, yeah. He's done some Ultimate X matches too in the past, I believe.
It was maybe it wasn't Team Canada. I don't know why he would have been in Team Canada, but it was.
He's a Canadian, right?
No, he's not. He's from Washington. Washington State. He's Seattle.
That's basically Canada. Might as well be Vancouver. No, I'm just kidding.
I think the place he's from is Parkland, Washington.
Oh, okay.
Which is like, anyways, that's how he ended up being trained pretty much. Well, he says trained he was trained in Canada by Tim Flowers, but Brian Alvarez is the one who taught him how to work. So
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, Jack has been around forever, and I first saw him in Ring of Honor in 2004 or 2005, and he's great. He's a great high flyer. No one is quite like Jack Evans. That's how I'll put
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's a good addition to that match.
It is, and I made the tweet, which got some fanfare. Said, "Botchamania, you're on high alert, sir, for this match with Jack Evans, because he is crazy, and he's gonna mess something up. He always does, but he's a fun to watch regardless.
And
So
somehow he turns it into, like, he'll mess it up, but he makes it work.
yeah,
Like he'll just be in midair, and then he'll twist the wrong way, crash and burn, and then get up later and just do it again and keep going.
yeah. Next, we got W. Morrissey backstage. He's with Bhupinder Singh, and Singh offered to help Morrissey, but Morrissey looked to his right, and there was PCO going nuts, hitting some equipment crates. And then Morrissey said that he'd be fine.
Going, oh!
Yeah. So
laugh.
you've been away. JD has a saying. He said, there's no perfect marriage. There is no marriage more perfect than the one between PCO and Impact. They're like a match made in heaven, the promotion and the PCO character. I felt like he was not good in Ring of Honor. And I was not really an avid Ring of Honor watcher, but I was like, that just doesn't make sense. He makes perfect sense in Impact. And but yeah, it was a dumb segment, but I liked it.
It was one of those stupid segments that were just funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's just because PCO's PCO.
Yeah.
Right? You can never get anyone panning a camera over and hitting crates like that would be as great and entertaining as PCO is doing it. Like all he was doing is hitting equipment crates and going, oh!
That's so crazy. Pro wrestling's the best. Yeah. Next, we got Rich Swann defeating Matthew Raywalt to retain the Digital Media Championship. Okay, so this is funny. So Rich Swann actually beat, and they showed it on Impact Plus earlier this week. He defeated Matt Cardona to win the title over the weekend at a Pro Wrestling Revolver show, right? Yes. But because Impact, their tapings, this show was taped almost a month ago, where that match hadn't happened yet. So they did the story that Matt Cardona stole the title. That way they can explain away why Rich Swann is on Impact without the title.
Without the title.
I was like, you know what? That's so WCW Saturday Night 1993. But you know what? I got to give him credit. That was a creative way to get out of that.
They tried, and it makes sense that Cardona would steal the title because it's Matt Cardona.
Yeah,
that works perfectly. Actually, that explains it. I was like, is it just like a conceptual title that exists in your head?
No,
I could have swore it was physical.
Yeah, and Rich Swann's a Digital Media Championship. Funny thing about Rich Swann, he doesn't have social media, and that's what the title's about, because it's typically defended on social media or on Impact Plus or on YouTube or Twitter. They'll show the matches through there. Rich Swann doesn't actually have social media right now.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he's like Juice Robinson, no social media.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. But they had an okay match. I'm not the biggest fan of Raywalt's work, but I thought Rich Swann was great, and it was a fun little match.
That makes me wonder. That actually made the trash talking in the match from Ray Walt appropriate, because he was like, "You're not the real Digital Media Champion" and things like that.
Right.
In the match, unless I misheard him.
Yeah, no, I think they actually might have planned it out well, but because this match was actually taped before he won the title. Happened. Yeah. Okay. So they had this all planned out.
Wow. That's impressive foresight.
Yeah. Because Cardona was not at this set of tapings.
Right.
So he was booked somewhere else, so he couldn't be there. So they actually had to get the title off of him at an indie show. And so they planned it out well. I thought it was a creative way to do it.
Very creative, very creative. And it makes sense to do it at Sami Callihan's promotion. So
yeah. A recap aired of a BTI. That's before the Impact. Oh, you know what? We missed the gimmick because I don't think it was recapped earlier. But a BTI, Alicia Edwards defeated Renee Michelle. And that was Talking BTI, everybody. Thank you for talking BTI with us. Sorry, that's the gimmick every week. Whenever the recap usually starts off with BTI, when they say what happened on there, usually at the beginning, and then we make fun of the fact that nobody actually watches BTI. And then
I actually watched it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because it was just because I knew Impact was going to start soon after it, so I was like, it's on. I might as well just put it on in the background while I get ready to take notes. And I didn't pay much attention, but I had it on.
Yeah. Yep. So, and then Masha Slamovich came out and handed her a piece of mail. It turns out that it was Edwards' face with a red X on it. So Masha wants to beat her up next. So
I laughed with this because the interviewer, Gia, she asked her, "What does this mean?" And Aisha goes, "I don't know."
And then Giselle Shaw has to show up and say, "Well, Masha's going to kill you." That's what that means, dummy.
I'm pretty sure a big red X across a picture of me is an indication someone wants to kill me.
Yeah.
So,
Alicia Edwards, everybody, big dumb.
I was like, if she's a babyface, she's a really dumb babyface.
Oh, she's definitely a dumb babyface. That's been Alicia Edwards for 10 years. So next,
I don't have much experience with her as a worker, so
yeah, you're better off without. So next, the Good Brothers came to ringside and they were talking about how great they are, and they wanted to talk about how they're going to beat up the Briscoe brothers at Slammiversary, and they said before that they wanted to do their top 10 Impact moments. And this went on forever. They had 10, which was their debut in Impact. Then they showed them beating Ethan Page. It showed them defeating Finn Juice, I think, at one point. And then they get to like number 6, and it's them beating the Good Brothers, or them beating the Briscoe brothers. And they get to number 5, it's the same. Number 4, it's the same. Number 3, same. 2, and then finally, for the love of God, finally, the Briscoes came out. And I want to say at that moment, because I was getting so annoyed by this segment, I was like, this is entirely too much Good Brothers on my television. And then at that moment when the Briscoe brothers came out, I got happy and excited. And I was just like, you know what? What they did worked. I got worked by the Good Brothers. They annoyed me so much. This thing drug on for so long that it actually made me, even though I'm a Briscoe Brothers fan, I love those guys, I was actually even more excited than I normally am to see them come out to beat these guys up. So I want to say kudos to Impact, kudos to the Good Brothers. I'm tough on those guys, but I think what they did actually worked in this segment.
Yeah, it was a good segment, and they had a quick little brawl with the Briscoes coming out on top, but the Good Brothers running away before really anything could be decisively solved. Nice little way to set up the pay-per-view. Typically, you don't have the babyface stand tall before the pay-per-view, but there's time next week to get some heat on the Briscoes. So I liked it. I also laughed when Gallows was talking about when they were talking about their championship. It was so annoying from Carl Anderson. And he's like, they're champions with Grace and Pigs, and they were doing Southern accents and things like that.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is not funny, which is the point. Point.
Yeah.
And then Gallows said no other team in the world had their lineage.
Lineage.
and he meant lineage, but he said lineage, which I had to note specifically because it was funny. That did make me laugh. But Jay and Mark Briscoe are great. They're exceptional talents, and there's no one like the Briscoes. Just like how I said, there's no one like PCO, and there's no one like Rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one else could be Rosemary but her. No one else can be PCO but him, and no one else can be the Briscoes but the Briscoes.
Yeah, and I think that right now, I think Impact is a good company for the Briscoes. I really did want them to go to AEW because I wanted them to get that money. Because I think that if they went to AEW, they could have been right up there with FTR and those tag teams and the Young Bucks and stuff.
Day one.
Yeah, but you know, and I've already ad nauseum talked about the controversy, and I'm very big, and I know you are too, on grace and forgiveness, and so I still am harping on that. But I think Impact is a good company for the Briscoe brothers, as we'll talk about later with W. Morrissey. I think they're going to shine as characters here. I really do, because their work speaks for itself. But here, they're not going to wrestle every week. They're going to cut tons of promos. And I think that their character work is really going to get strengthened by being in this company, and I'm excited for that.
And Jay and Mark are already fantastic promos
Amazing.
because they're so unique.
Yeah.
Like typically you wouldn't look at these guys the way they talk. You would think it would be a good promo, but it works because it's them.
Yep.
And that's why, I think Impact's a great place for them. I wish they signed with AEW as well, because the matches, these guys are exceptional, and I want to see the Briscoes against the Young Bucks for the 10 billionth time. Why? Because it's awesome every time.
Yeah. But I think they got a lot of good matchups here in Impact, and as a guy with an Impact podcast, hey, I love the Briscoes, and I'm happy they're here. I'm glad they're here. So
it's a great place for them, and they're going to be able to help the young guys too, because they're not even that old, but they're super experienced.
Oh gosh, they've been around since they were for 16? Over 20 years, since like 16.
Yeah. And they're only in their mid 30s. And you get them in there with the Good Brothers, that'll be a great match. You get them in there, Motor City Machine Guns again.
Oh my gosh, match. Yeah.
Put them in there with some of the young guys. OGK would be great. They've already had great matches with the Kingdom, so yeah.
Yep. Next, we got Impact World Champion Josh Alexander. He was backstage talking about how Eric Young didn't concern him, and he wasn't surprised he won last week. He said he's working hard to prepare to keep the Impact Championship because Eric Young is a former champion and not a joke. I like how they're building up the credibility of the challenger here, by the way, because
reminding people that Eric Young is legit.
Yeah, because he had been a tag team guy for a long time and hadn't really done a lot of singles matches lately. So you got to re-educate the audience that he's a contender and a threat to this title. And then Violent by Design came up to Alexander and attacked him before security pulled him apart. This is a funny line by old Josiah. Impact went to the Kevin Dunn School of Production for this segment as the camera was shaking so violently during the brawl. I felt dizzy and I don't get motion sick. That's funny. Yeah, I did notice that too. And only a few seconds, so it's better than 3 hours of that. So yeah, that's a good observation by you. That's pretty funny.
I had to. I was like, I couldn't see what happened as soon as they started fighting. And I was like, I started getting dizzy and it was like, I'm watching Raw.
Yeah, that's funny. And then they cut to Alexander. He's with Scott D'Amore, and he asked for a match next week against Big Joe Doring. And Scott D'Amore smartly says, "What are you thinking? He's been undefeated for 2 years, and he's humongous." But he said he wants to take him out next week, so that way he doesn't have to deal with him at the Slammiversary. So there's a little bit of strategery going on with old Josh Alexander. But I have been wanting to see Alexander and Joe Doring go at it for 2 years. And I'm finally going to get it next week, and I'm very excited about that.
Has Doring been undefeated for 2 years?
He has not been pinned or submitted or anything. He's lost in tag team matches, but he's never been the one to get pinned. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you go for the non-finish next week, or do you have Alexander beat him?
If I'm booking and I got, one of the biggest pay-per-views coming up and Joe Doring is not going to be a contender for the title anytime soon, I'd go ahead and beat him. I beat him. Yeah, that's what I would do.
And it would establish Alexander as a real threat. That he's not just a transitional champion this time. He's going to take it to everybody.
Yeah. Now I say that knowing that if they do want to do this match on one of their monthly Impact Plus specials, or even, I don't think it would do well on pay-per-view because I don't think Joe Doring's a big enough name, but if they did it on one of their monthly app specials, if they do want to do that match later, and I would save the finish and I would just do a schmoz, right? But if they're not planning on never going to that match, just beat the guy, right? Because he's mainly a tag team guy anyway.
If they're going to do that match later, give Alexander a visual pinfall or submission.
Yeah.
With the ref distracted by Violent by Design. And then you can go to it later. But I think Alexander needs at least a visual pinfall in this one, or a visual submission.
Right. I gotcha. Next we got Honor No More, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. They should just call him OGK. What are they doing?
I know. And they have OGK on their tights, but I was like, right. Honor No More. Okay.
Sometimes they refer to them as the Kingdom, sometimes OGK, and then but when they come out, they're called Honor No More. But with Eddie Edwards, they defeated Heath and Kazuyuki Fujita. I'm sorry, Rhino. My bad, Rhino. Oh, you got the joke. Thank you for laughing at my joke. I appreciate it. That usually pisses JD off, but so this match was okay. This was really more about the aftermath of the match where they Pillmanized Rhino's knee,
Yes.
effectively taking him out. And if you have been watching Rhino in 2022, you can tell the guy's got some knee troubles anyway. He has a lot of tough time walking and working in the ring. But they took him out, and then Kazarian and the Motor City Machine Guns came out to fight off Honor No More and save the day there.
It is funny because Rhino's work still looks good in the ring.
Oh yeah,
but he's that kind of vet where it's just like, well, I'm hurting, but I'm gonna do it.
yeah.
And he's a lot like Tanahashi in that regard, but not that he's as good as Tanahashi, because pretty much no one is.
Right.
But he's the kind of guy that where he's a good solid hand, and you're going to get a solid match out of him whenever. And Heath seemed to get gassed in this one.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that you noticed that, because I've been saying that about Heath, and people are like, "Oh, he's just selling and this and that," and I'm like, I think the guy just might be out of shape. I don't know. But he's been back for a while. He's been back since Bound for Glory. So I don't understand what's going on with this guy, but there's something going on with him.
Yeah, and that's why I noted he wasn't very good in the match. I was kind of surprised because he was significantly better in WWE working.
Yeah,
and really in a more freer environment Impact, he should probably be doing at least the same.
Well, he did suffer a really severe injury that put him on the shelf for over a year.
Okay, that'll do it.
And
oh,
so
right. That was a neck injury, right?
No, it was like he had like 3 different surgeries. I don't think it was on his neck, but it was like on his abs, like an abductor. Yes. And then he had like a couple of other things that he had to get fixed at the same time. So he was on the shelf for a year. He ended up returning at Bound for Glory last year, but he didn't really start wrestling until November. But he's been back since November, and he's like physically he looks like he's in shape. But and then he ended up getting COVID, and that took him out. And
that's not going to help the stamina.
No. And I, as somebody that fought off COVID, I remember for like 2 or 3 weeks after that, I could barely breathe. I couldn't do any type of exercising. So, but that was back in February, I think. So, because he did headline a show against Moose. I felt like he gassed out in that match too. So, there's something's going on with that guy. I don't know what it is.
In saying that, when I said he didn't look good in this match, I just meant he doesn't look good in the match. I like Heath.
Yeah.
So, so it was just unusual. Like he didn't look his normal self.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And the next week, after the break, Rhino was loaded into an ambulance, and Heath left with him. And then Kazarian and the Guns asked to fight Honor No More. And Scott D'Amore asked them to find 2 other people to join them in a fight to settle the score at Slammiversary. So you're going to have the Impact / TNA Originals taking on Honor No More at Slammiversary. And we got 2 mystery partners, which save it, Josiah, for the Patreon. We will save it. We'll do it. We're going to guess. We're going to try to guess this and see what we can come up with.
I liked Rhino selling in that angle. Like he sounded like he was dying. Which is good. You should. You Pillmanize a guy. It's a serious angle. Good. I liked it.
Yeah. No, I thought like I didn't really care for the match too much. I'll say I thought Taven and Bennett looked fantastic actually in the match, and the crowd was with Rhino. I don't think they cared about Heath so much, but I felt like they were really with Rhino, and they were on their feet and they were going crazy for the after attack. So I would say the thing as a whole, and then you from start to finish of the match to the angle in the ambulance, to say as a whole, I thought it was a pretty effective segment with the wrestling in the match not being as good as I would have liked it to have been.
And really, it was secondary to the angle afterwards, which was a really good heat angle. So,
absolutely. So I thought it was
really liked it.
Yeah, pretty effective, and it's leading to a match that I'm very interested in. So good on Impact for that. Next we got Tom Hannafin. He ran down Slammiversary card, which now includes Jack Evans in the Ultimate X match and the 10-man tag match with Honor No More. So next week we got Tennille Dashwood versus Rosemary. That match should be. We got Impact World Champion Josh Alexander versus Joe Doring, which be still my heart, ladies and gentlemen. That is a dream match for me. Somebody that went back and did a lot of research on Joe Doring's matches in All Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm very much looking forward to that match. And then we also got Eddie Edwards, Matt Taven, and Mike Bennett versus Frankie Kazarian and the Motor City Machine Guns, and they should tear the house down with that
There's
one.
no way that match is going to be bad. Like
No, like it
something
has
has
money
to
written all over it.
catastrophically go wrong for that match to be bad. Like they all tear their quads at the same time or something like that.
Yeah. And so for the main event here, we got Moose and Macklin taking on Morrissey and PCO. And I thought that this was a very good match and a very good way to close the show this week. Macklin looked incredible here. I think that he's a guy that they're really getting behind. They also connected the Moose and Sami Callihan feud, so they're furthering that along. But I gotta say, one of my favorite parts of the match and my favorite competitor in the entire match was PCO, and I absolutely loved his entrance. The French Canadian Frankenstein with the music, that was the debut of that. They had not done that before.
Oh,
that
really?
was the first time that they had used that. I thought that was just awesome. I thought Morrissey looked great, and we're going to talk about Morrissey's future here in a little bit. But what'd you think of the main event here, and what do you think about the show as a whole?
Really great match to close the show. I haven't seen much of Moose since his Ring of Honor days, I admit. I've seen some of his big matches in Impact, and he's always been good, but he looked really good in this match.
He was tremendous, right? Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous. Like ring general level tremendous. He's gotten very good. And he has he has a superstar aura to him. And like when he comes out with his awesome theme music and like how can you hear that theme music and not get hyped for me?
Right. And then he takes the robe off and he looks like a modern day Lex Luger. He's just absolutely shredded.
Yeah, exactly. And just got that superstar look to him.
Yeah.
And Macklin was fantastic in this match. It was clearly designed to highlight him and put him over as a major guy. And Morrissey, of course, is a great redemption story because he's improved so much since he left WWE. And since he dealt with the issues that he struggled with, which are very well known. But yeah, he's just a great main event. Really fun. PCO, of course, is PCO.
Yeah, he was
like,
yeah.
If you love how wacky PCO is, you're going to like this match because he was all over it too. And he worked really well with Morrissey. It's too bad Morrissey is leaving Impact, as we discussed, but as we're going to discuss on Patreon.
Yes.
But him and PCO made a good team, and the PCO with the tope into the suicide dive into the cannonball homicides style suicide dive. That was awesome.
Yeah, man.
You forget this guy's in his mid 50s.
He's been around since the 80s, and I watched him as a kid with the Quebecers in the Mounties.
Same.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget his match at In Your House with Bret Hart.
Yes.
That match.
Jean-Pierre
awesome.
Lafitte.
Yes. The match over a leather jacket.
Yeah. So we'll actually do some play-by-play here, man. We'll read some of your work here, but PCO hit a flipping senton off the top rope onto the apron onto Macklin, which was insane according to Josiah. It was insane, absolutely. Then the PCO hit a belly-to-belly on Moose before hitting a diving headbutt off the middle rope. Macklin broke up the pinfall attempt, and PCO hit a cannonball through the middle rope onto both men. That move right there got me out of my feet. I thought that was just awesome.
I popped. It was an audience of one in my living room, but I popped.
Yeah, PCO went for a moonsault on Moose of all things, almost 60-year-old guy. But Moose rolled out of the way. Moose and PCO leveled each other with clotheslines, but PCO sat right up and tagged out to Morrissey. Moose and PCO ended up going over the top rope with a cactus clothesline from PCO. Then Macklin hit a spear on Morrissey, who was in the Tree of Woe, and then hit a low shot on PCO before hitting Morrissey with a double arm DDT, the cactus double arm DDT for the pinfall. Just a great match. Macklin and PCO brawled until Moose took him out with a spear. Lights went out. Come back on, and Sami Callihan in the ring. Moose went to go hit a spear, but then Sami Callihan nailed him with a baseball bat. And then the show closed with Sami Callihan telling the camera that this will never be over between him and Moose. Just great stuff. Great way to end a pretty solid show. So I know your final thoughts are written in form here, but just verbalize. What did you think of the overall show?
Sure. I really enjoyed it, actually. And because of that 6-man tag, I'm probably going to watch again next week.
Oh, nice.
I really enjoyed this episode of Impact.
Yeah.
It was very easy to watch, which is probably one of the best compliments I can give to a wrestling show. If I feel it doesn't drag anyway, and the action was entertaining, storylines. I'm not too invested in the stories yet, but give it time. Uh,
Hmm.
but now that I have access to actually watch Impact easily, I don't see why I can't put it on Thursday night and just go about my business and have it on the TV while I'm there. And
Yeah.
because I have two computers, so I have one computer for work and one computer for streaming and stuff like that. And so I'll
Right.
just hook the computer up to stream on the TV, and I'll do work while I watch. Yeah, it was a really good show. I thought a really good show this week.
Good. Yeah, man. I thought it was a really strong show. On paper, I did not think that it was going to be very good. There were some matches that I just didn't think that would be very good. And honestly, there wasn't, other than a couple of backstage segments, there wasn't really anything on the show that I didn't like. And I'm usually kind of a complainer. So I was like, wow, I think they did a great job. And then the crowd there in Orlando, Florida, they finally returned to the Orlando area. I think it's called a town called Kissimmee. There, I thought the crowd was pretty lively. They were up for everything. Overall, a very good show for me, top to bottom.
And as far as promoting their pay-per-view goes, I know all the top matches on the pay-per-view now.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's the Eric Young versus Josh Alexander. There's the Queen of the Mountain match. There's an Ultimate X match. There's the Honor No More 10-man tag. And I believe there's one other that I'm forgetting.
Good Brothers and Briscoe Brothers.
Good Brothers and Briscoes.
Yep.
Is Moose involved in a match as well yet?
I think they're leading us towards a Sami Callihan match.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, like, that's off the top. I watched one episode and I know most of that already.
Yeah.
Great job promoting for your pay-per-view.
Great job, Impact. Great job, Tom Hannafin, who I think is one of the better announcers out there right now.
Yes, he's still got a little of that WWE style of talking in his voice, but he's very good at running down the stories and how we need to know them. Yeah. Like he kept me aware and caught up with things. He would reference this happened last week during a match, so I never felt like I was lost watching the show. Right. I felt very much so aware of the storylines, even though I have not watched Impact in months. And that's a great credit to him as an announcer. And anchoring the desk without his normal colleague there, because Matt was wrestling. So he had constant guests throughout the night and constantly helping them tell the story of their upcoming match or the feuds that they're in. Excellent announcing. Excellent announcing.
Yeah. I think that he's super underrated, man. He's a great announcer and a great show. And so if you're listening to us right now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you get your podcast for free, that's going to do it for us this week. But if you want to join us, head over for our premium segment where we're going to go over some news. We're going to talk some Morrissey. We're going to go over some Slammiversary matches and give some predictions there with Josiah. We're going to talk a little bit about Matt Cardona, and then a female talent that we all kind of thought was coming to Impact has detoured to another promotion. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. So if you want to listen to that, go to patreon.com/FightGameMedia and subscribe to Fight Game Media Plus today. Only $5 a month, everybody. And you get this extra content every single week. So free feed. See you later. And Patreon members, stick around.